What's up, y'all? Jared Sandler with you. Pre-game news and notes. Rangers and the Mariners playing their second game of a three-game series. Gonna have a little Major League Baseball conversation in a few minutes. First, though, Chris Davis activated. Eli White sent down. Just kind of like what we expected. Eli White's going to get an opportunity to play more regularly. I don't think that that's the primary reason, though. I think the Rangers, as demonstrated by the way playing time's been distributed, we're okay with Eli White not getting everyday at bats. I think ultimately the Rangers felt like having 14 pitchers was more valuable than having 13 position players, having 14 pitchers versus a four-man positional player bench or positional bench. So I think that's ultimately the decision they made. Chris Davis is going to start against lefties. Chris Woodward said he's going to start against some righties, but there really just isn't an opportunity right now. Maybe you can sneak a day off for a guy here or there, but he's not going to be an everyday, no questions asked in the lineup guy. He can earn that with performance, but his primary role is going to be against lefties. Just a guess here, and it'll be interesting to see how the Rangers deploy Chris Davis. Is he going to be an every game pinch hitter type that, you see with guys who platoon late in the game when, if there's a righty starting, then the opposing team goes to a tough lefty. If so, I wonder if that's why David Dahl is the DH tonight. Not because David Dahl is the inferior defensive player to Willie Calhoun or because David Dahl just needs a day off his legs. If you're going to pinch hit, you're probably not pinch hitting for Willie. You're probably pinch hitting for David Dahl. And if you pinch hit for David Dahl, who's the DH, then Chris Davis can be the DH. The last thing you want is for Chris Davis to play in the outfield. Chris Davis is a DH. Can you stick him in left? Sure. He's not very good there. So I wonder if we're going to start to see some of those decisions made with the second half of the game in mind. Like, yeah, you know what? David Dahl's the better defensive player than Willie, but we'd rather have a full game of Willie in the outfield than a half a game of David Dahl and in critical late innings, a half a game of Chris Davis. It'll just be interesting to see how that all unfolds. Yesterday, Joey Gallo bunted in a one-run game as the tying run, 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th inning. After the game, Chris Woodward, if you're reading between the lines, he was complimentary of the idea and trying to make something happen. But, I think you could tell that he would have preferred Joey swing away, and so would have I. Joey can change the game with one swing. I know that so far this year on the whole has not been the most power-packed year from Joey, but he is starting to hit the ball better. The last week, he's starting to have more hard contact. Had 2 homers in that Twin series, should have been a third. Of the wind knocked down one that ended up being a out at the very base of the wall. Let's say Joey were to single. Chances are Kendall Graveman then comes in. Kendall Graveman had allowed up to that point 3 hits in, I think, 13 innings. The league average this year is a little over 230. All right, so no matter who's on the mound, hits are just not coming at a high rate. It's way down across Major League Baseball. So let's say Joey bunts successfully, which he did not. He ended up bunting too close to the mound, the plate, and it was thrown out. If Joey bunts successfully, he's at first. Sure, Joey could steal second, but it's not something that he does a ton. You're 2 hits away in all likelihood from tying the game. So by bunting, Joey is essentially giving you a chance, but you still need to string together 3 straight hits, unless that next hit is a double, which it could be. But again, odds are that it's not going to be. Just playing the numbers. And then those odds shrink when you consider that Kendall Graveman, who's been outstanding, is on the mound. I'd rather Joey swing there. I'd rather him swing away. And if he singles by swinging, okay. Or if he doubles, okay. But you can't hit a home run when you bunt. And not that Joey should be up there with home run or nothing on his mind, but that possibility is a game-changing possibility that you lose when you bunt. If I'm the Mariners, or if I'm a Mariners fan, I'm pumped when I see Joey Gallo turn to bunt. It's a sigh of relief. So I'd like to see Joey swing away. One thing we thought about was, well, maybe he just, isn't comfortable against Anthony Misiewicz, against whom he was 0 for 3 in his career prior to that. Anthony Misiewicz is not Josh Hader. Now, you don't need to be an elite caliber pitcher for a particular hitter to struggle off of you. Maybe for whatever reason, Joey just doesn't see the ball well off of Anthony Misiewicz. But I want Joey to have the mindset of, I don't care who's on the mound. It can be Steve Carlton on the mound. It can be any pick a lefty. And Joey's good against, he's better against lefties this year than righties. But I'm Joey Gallo, and I'm the biggest son of a gun. And I'm going to, I'm the best guy in this matchup. That's the mentality I would like. Now, you can't force that upon someone, and maybe that's not the way Joey's wired. And if not, that's okay. But, for a guy who's likely going to get a lot of money in a year and a half, typically a team's going to want that guy to be someone whose back you can get on. It didn't work out, and if he would have bunted successfully and then Adolis Garcia doubles, then we're maybe not having this conversation in depth like this. Now, if Adolis Garcia was the tie and run and Joey was bunting to give him a chance to come up as the tie and run, hey, that's great. That I'm okay with that. I would much rather see Joey Gallo swing away. Also, he walks a ton too. So there are a lot of ways he could have gotten on first. I didn't need the bunt early in the at-bat to be one of those ways. And it's a learning moment. And, hopefully the hard hitting we've seen from Joey the last week continues back in the lineup, of course, tonight. All right, quickly around Major League Baseball. Want to talk about Albert Pujols and want to talk about 200 wins. Let's start with Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols seemed to be, there's never a sure thing, but Albert Pujols seemed to be close enough to a sure thing when he signed his contract with the Angels. There are not many guys in whom you'd be as confident investing the length and money that the Angels invested in Albert Pujols after 30 years old. But Albert Pujols was not a guy who relied on waning athleticism. He was a guy who was such a fundamentally sound hitter and not someone you anticipated who would have as precipitous of a decline as he did. Just to give you an idea, Albert Pujols in his 30s had the same WAR that former Ranger, briefly, Randy Velarde had in his 30s. So from 30 onward in Randy Velarde's career and Albert Pujols' career, they amassed the same WAR. That is how ordinary Albert Pujols was during his time with the Angels. He never had a season that came close to any of his seasons with St. Louis, not even one. A lot of times when you do these contracts, you expect the last few years to be rough. I don't think that when the Angels signed that contract years ago, that anyone would be surprised that in 2021, Albert Pujols would be struggling. I think their surprise would be that in his first year, 2012, through, let's say, 2014, his first 3 years, he would have an 810 OPS, which for a lot of guys is fine. But for a guy you were paying that much, a guy who never had an OPS with the Cardinals below, I think, 906, that's concerning. He just never was the guy in Anaheim that he was with the Cardinals. And he only had one season in his career with the Angels with an OPS better than 790. And that was his very first year. Every other season was spent with an OPS in the 700s or below. That's okay. Yeah, he had a 40 home run season in 2015, but, even in that year, hit 244, got on base less than 31% of the time. That's brutal. So it's just a cautionary reminder of not that you shouldn't sign these big deals, because at some point in time, you are, as an organization, at the right point of your cyclical journey of competitiveness to make those moves. But they're not guarantees. And the odds are you're not going to be happy at the end, at least as happy at the end as you were at the beginning. And in this case, you probably weren't happy in the middle, which that's the scary part. But it just didn't work out for Albert Pujols with the Angels. And they invested a lot. And frankly, unfortunately, I think Albert Pujols kind of represents the Angels in the Artie Moreno era of ineptitude or mediocrity. A lot of flash, big name, a lot of money, big contract, not the production that you would have expected. And that's kind of, unfortunately, fortunately for the Rangers, but unfortunately for them, what they've been about. All right. Another no-hitter was thrown yesterday. Wade Miley threw the fourth of the season. Sean Manaea almost threw the fifth an hour or so later. It was broken up in the eighth inning. The Major League batting average this year is 233. Last year it was in the 240s. It is remarkably low. It is incredible. And I wonder, obviously there are rules that can change that increase offense, if they do move the mound back, stuff like that. But they're two milestones that I don't know that anyone's going to reach anytime soon. And I don't want to put any finality to it like ever again, but I don't know who the heck's getting to 3,000 hits, especially when batting averages are dropping and hits just aren't coming as frequently. Plus, you got the longevity part of it. That's always been a challenge no matter what era. But who the heck's getting to 3,000 hits and who's getting to 300 wins? We can discuss the 3,000 hits thing in a later pregame conversation. But I wanted to bring up the 300 wins because I remember when Bartolo Colon was pitching for the Rangers. We had this discussion. This is not a new discussion of who the heck is going to get to 300 wins again. I mean, you've got pitchers who are not going as deep into games, and thus they're not getting as many wins because of it. People are more cautious with pitchers, but Bartolo Colon had 247 wins, and we discussed during his year with the Rangers in 2018 maybe 250 is the milestone. Maybe 250 wins is what we should recalibrate that exciting win milestone to. And I get that wins. I'm on board with wins not being the best or most significant way to evaluate a pitcher. So let's look at Jacob deGrom. Look at Zach Greinke, frankly, during some of his years with the Royals. But wins are an easy counting stat that we can work towards that creates a fun milestone figure, right? So I thought, okay, well, if it's not 300, maybe 250. And the reality is there's really no reason why it should be a round number. Like a lot of these milestones, it should be that there's a percentage of pitchers who reach it, and maybe it's 3%. And that's why it's so exciting. So maybe, the top 3%, it's 247.5, whatever. But round numbers make it easier. So let's just use a round number. I don't even know if 250 is fitting at this point. I think it might be 200. If you look at active pitchers, there are two who have 200 wins, Justin Verlander and Zach Greinke. John Lester is 193. And if this is John Lester's last year, which it might be, there's no guarantee he gets to 200. Clayton Kershaw's got 179. I think he probably gets there. But again, pitchers do have precipitous falls sometimes. And 21 wins is a lot. That's not, 21 wins is probably this year and next year for Clayton Kershaw. Maybe, depending on injuries, he needs a little bit of another year. But then after that, Max Scherzer, 177. And then I don't know where 200 wins is coming from. Adam Wainwright, 168. David Price, 151. Those guys aren't getting there. Irvin Santana, 149. He's not getting there. Johnny Cueto, 130. He's not getting there. Jay Happ, 125. He's not getting there. Madison Bumgarner, Jake Arrieta, Steven Strasburg. Steven Strasburg at 112, you think possibly, but he's still 88 wins away. Garrett Cole at 105 probably is a good chance. But point being, it shouldn't be a club that has, a big membership. And so when I look at active pitchers, forget the kids who are 24 and under, who there's just way too much time for us to truly gauge. You got Verlander and Greinke in there, Lester and Kershaw and Scherzer as guys who will, I think, stand a really good chance of getting there. And then after that, maybe it's Garrett Cole. I don't know who else. And so to me, 300 wins now needs to be 200 wins. 200, if we're going to celebrate wins, 200 needs to be that number. Because let me tell you something, none of these guys on this list, there's not a single active pitcher who right now I think stands a chance of getting 300. And Justin Verlander at 226 is probably the guy who's got the best chance to get to 250. That's not happening either. All right, there you go. That's our pregame conversation. Talk to y'all later. Have a great day.